Coolies.
Excellent. Welcome to the third Musings, episode 37 of Mere Mortals.
Yeah, I think we're going to start forgetting them.
We're going to start forgetting the numbers.
100%. I don't mind that.
I think we're going to just stop saying it's episode 37, it's episode whatever. I think we're going to stuck to saying
Let's get into it.
Third Musings, fifth Musings, 10 Musings, whatever. I think I'll keep a track on that as it goes, but there's going to be a lot of stuff coming through.
Especially if we're doing like interviews or something.
We're just going to go. To begin this Musings today, I'm going to put a song. Frank Ocean, Lost. Just wanted to play that. It has been my go-to this past week.
Nice.
And it kind of ties in with a couple of stuff I was going to talk about. So I just wanted to play it at the onset of this podcast. How have you been? How's the week, man?
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Good. I've
much learnings.
Yeah. So one of the main ones, and I'll dive right in, is that I really have got to emphasize just how important
Don't tap the table, mate.
Planning is. I can actually tap it.
You're good. It's mine's going to be stuffed up. Thank you.
No, so I can actually, what I want to emphasize is the importance and learnings I'm getting from doing all these daily tasks and habit forming, monthly goals and all that. It seems very hard to understand if I look back a couple of months ago and why it has been so useful. And I always sort of had like a decent long-term goals and I wasn't super strict with the monthly goals or daily goals, but I had those there. But since I've really dialed it in, I have noticed just how much it is better. And one of the things with that was I noticed I was not doing my daily dream journaling with like the same intensity that I was doing a month or two ago. And it was sort of like it was taking up not a large part of my day, but maybe a good couple of minutes in the morning, and then during the day I would still be trying to do my reality tests.
This is when yes. And so you were doing all that, but not particularly putting effort into the journaling.
It was something I was sort of forcing myself to do, but my heart wasn't in it. And so I realized like, okay, no, wait, I don't particularly want to be doing this. I'd rather be doing something else. And if my heart's not in 100%, I'm not going to get the results that I'm really looking for with that, which is to sort of progress on the lucid dreaming. So what I have done instead is made that, I guess, like daily habit and task and goal that I check off. I've sort of transitioned that now to something I was getting more interested in, which was the negative visualizations.
Yes. Yep.
So I mentioned this in the last episode.
Yep. Go and check that out if you want to listen to
more. If you want to hear me bitching and complaining about people driving cars.
Yep.
But I have already noticed some interesting results, which was for me, I went home and saw the family for last couple of days. And just my interactions with them were way, way better than they have been.
Nice.
And, this is probably the deepest I got with like my mum, my dad, my brother for months, potentially. So
good.
Yeah, it's making me appreciate it more. It's probably something more that I don't really notice how I'm interacting with them differently. But because I've sort of set myself up nicely in the morning and the week prior, when I do go see them, it's, the first time I've seen them in like almost a week.
In a while,
so, I'm really appreciating them more, showing more gratitude, being a lot more understanding and kinder than I have been in the past. So that's
good.
just one.
It's good to hear.
One thing that's
nice.
Working well for me. But
would you attribute that to the short-term goals that you changed up that has helped you doing that?
I mean, because I was sort of playing with it the past couple of weeks. And then the start of this week was where I was like, okay, I'm going to implement this as something I sort of have to do every morning. And I guess it showed the results, even though I implemented it 2 days ago.
Still, you can see some.
I was still sort of playing
changes
around with it a little bit beforehand.
It's cool. That's good to see. It was interesting. I'll bring something up that I just noted down because I almost forgot about it. I actually went to caught up with a good friend of mine, Yuchi fan. I'll call him out because he might listen to this and he might be like, "Oh, there's my name." We got into talking about goals and discussions of what he wanted to do, and he's gone through he kind of started up a business with a couple of business partners that ended up dissipating and doing something else, and now he's kind of working in a more normal day-to-day job, right?
Yeah.
And I was talking to him and I started talking about like, well, what about your medium-term goals? What are your long-term goals? Even your short-term goals. And it was so interesting to see that he barely had any of that. He had the ambition and the drive to do stuff.
Yeah.
But he didn't really have much of those goals. And so I kind of described to him again the whole image of like, you start here, you start navigating or whatever.
Yeah.
And, very quickly, like in 10 minutes, he was really like, oh, yeah, okay, I get it that I have, like, he just hasn't had enough time to really put down and be like, oh, what I do want to be doing and why he's doing what he's doing. So he's picking up at the moment Amazon experience, skill sets, and all around like infrastructure of using Amazon. And I'm like, oh, that's all good and well, but what are you trying to use it for? What's the benefit for it? Where are you trying to get to? Like, how do you know you're progressing and all that? And for him, he was just more like, well, I just know that it's a good thing to do.
Fun.
So it's interesting how much a normal human, mere mortals, right?
Yeah.
Are just like that. But then just implementing a little bit of like, small goal setting where it's daily, medium term, long term, can like play off like really quickly, 2 days, or in some cases it's going to be longer.
Of course.
But you can see tactical changes really quickly.
Do you think he was intrigued by the idea? Do you think that's something
I think it piqued his interest around like, oh, I really don't have a concept of what I'm trying to focus on and not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now he himself is like, should be very grateful of many things he has anyways. Like a normal individual might not have, but still you could see how much influence he could be had by having those goals set up.
Yeah.
So
one of the things I've really noticed, especially with my younger brother, is even if you think something is really important and it is for you and it probably is for them, and you can see how it would help them. Just that old adage, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And I noticed when I was trying to, particularly when I was trying to sort of force my brother to go to the gym, because I knew he had some of the same body issues that I had. And I knew how beneficial it would be. Even if he was only in there for like 2 months, he'd see the results. And then I wouldn't need to say a single thing from then on. Yeah. I couldn't force him. And so that's where I've sort of understood like, okay, in the future, and I hold this pretty much as a goal now, I really don't try and tell people to do things, but I try and live like a good example as a good role model. And so if they're interested in something, then I'll be there to definitely give my advice in the best way possible. But you can't force people to do something or change something or behave in a way. And what I was thinking when I heard you talking about that, Yuchi, that you could tell him all these things and be like sort of insistent, oh, you should really do this, blah, blah, blah.
Exactly, but you can't.
But then, potentially in the future, he'll look at you and be like, oh, you're doing really well in this venture or whatever. And you can be like, oh yeah, you remember when I was talking to you about making goals and whatnot? Yeah,
that's Visualisation. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can't. Yeah, no, you're right. I'll pull you back on something because you made something interesting. I don't know if I've talked to you about this. Adages. So, you say the whole, you can't make the horse drink, right? You can lead him to water, but you can't make him drink. And that sort of adage, it explains a lot, right? That it's a bigger concept, right? And you can explain the concept. Yeah. But it's one thing, speaking of Yuchi, something that I've talked to him in the past, and I wasn't too aware of this. In China, and there's probably other, areas and populations that do this as well. They like to explain a lot of things through that sort of mannerism, right? Storytelling. And every time I talk to him or someone, from that Asian descendancy, they seem to have a story for like any type of thing that might be happening. What situation, Which I actually think, because story, like when you tell something in a story, you remember it a lot more than if you didn't. And there's, whole things about, if you want to be really good at memory, you can learn to create memory houses and memory sequences that use stories because your brain remembers it a lot better. Yeah. And I actually started thinking about, and I thought about it a long time beforehand, but I want to start talking even in the very simple things that I say in much more storytelling style of ways, so that I'm not just saying, if I'm trying to explain to you a concept of even mathematics, like if I'm trying to say like 2 times 10 is 20 and 20 times 40 is whatever, right? Yeah. That is numbers and it's abstract and it probably doesn't matter. But if you're trying to teach it to a kid, you can see the power of saying, well, it's 2 apples times 10 apples, or, if you've got 10 bunches or something like that, you kind of putting pictures in the mind of someone, it helps you remember it a lot more. So I'm trying to think about how I establish that and looking forward, like almost like the next year's goal, how I can change my speech patterns and the way that I present It's a lot much more in that storytelling nature where you begin, you capture your audience with something that's exciting and informative and timely, and then you lead them through the story to get them to that solution.
Yeah, okay.
I think for anything where it's like you're presenting, talking to friends, just plain old storytelling, I've noticed that sometimes we can be good at it, but sometimes you can be really terrible at it. So I think that's like a really strong thing to have picked up in the knowledge of.
For sure. I had a book, and I still have it at home somewhere, of Aesop's Fables. And they're actually really nice. They're really cool reading them. You can get a lot from them.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
Another one, I actually was commenting on a YouTube video for notes in Spanish. And this is a dude from England who went to Spain, sort of found like a wife there. And he's created, I heard it sort of more of a podcasty type thing. And I wouldn't even call it a podcast, sort of like a series of lessons on learning Spanish.
Sure. Okay.
And it's quite a good one and really decent for beginner learners.
Yep.
Now I'm sort of at the stage now where I could do their advanced stuff relatively easy with the minor differences that they're in Spain. So they use vosotros, which is a bit different. And they had one which was called, I actually want to know if you know this, cada loco con su tema.
Cada loco con su tema. Yes.
Yeah. And I'd never heard that before. I think
every idiot with their own theme.
Yeah.
It's literally the translation. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's sort of like,
or each to their own.
Well, see, I got to a discussion board on that in Duolingo, and it seemed like actually a lot of languages had this very similar thing. So there was like a Russian, a German version. I think there was even an Asian version as well.
Yep.
And it sort of wasn't each to their own. It seemed like it was more translated as like each person has their own messed up thing, because each to their own is sort of implies like you have two different views and they're conflicting, and then it's like, okay, you do your thing and I'll sort of do my thing.
Yeah, okay.
Where I thought cada loco con su tema was more like people can have different views. It didn't have that implication of like, okay, it's cool if you do your thing and I do my thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, you know Spanish better than me, so.
Interestingly, I would say that what it translates directly to saying each idiot has their own thing.
Yeah.
That's what it translates to. But in Spanish, you would say that as
I
each to their own.
Yeah, I totally understand that it's not.
But okay, I didn't actually realize there was like more languages that have the same like sort of type of wording
almost
for it.
Directly the same translation. It's just like it's like been missed over in English, so we don't have that.
Interesting. Okay.
But, yeah.
There you go. I've got plenty of things, man. I don't even know if we're going to run out of time. One, I'll start from the bottom. Been researching analytics sites. So, the Hootsuites, the others where you can do social media posting from different platforms, analytics of your own podcast. Everything is horrible.
Yeah.
It is horrible.
Impressed.
Hootsuite, which is supposed to be like one of the top level, areas where you can post your social media, Instagram, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Terrible. Just the layout is terrible. The usability is terrible. It would take me almost longer to do it on theirs than do it on my phone. Like, it was just out of control. And it got me thinking, because it's something that I talked to my dad months back, and I said, can we have a quick look at what APIs, all the various ones are doing and how easy it could be to extract it all and repost it back. And it is difficult-ish, right, to do.
Yeah.
It takes effort. But it just seemed like there was such an opportunity there for someone to come along and make a really, intuitive one, even like a mobile-friendly one where, from your phone you can schedule to post something ahead of time in a week's time or something like that, rather than it being computer desktop-based. They were just horrific. Yeah. I could see maybe Instagram and Facebook. Depends how the business model would be. Like they themselves could be doing a better job at it, but then they probably make more money just letting the API get exposed, and for third-party companies to come in and do it rather than
what's
them
API?
doing it. So it's it's testing me now. It's I don't know what
using it, and he doesn't.
I know. Well, I can't remember
what's the concept
the script, the concept of it. And I'm gonna have to look it up before someone looking at this is asking me why I don't know this. It's an application programming interface.
Okay.
Is what it actually it is. In essence, just a service that gets sent out. Here's a lesson for people listening to this, right? So why would Facebook not want to build their own thing as like a really, really powerful thing in-house so that anybody can edit and use their stuff? And it makes more users like, if Facebook was able to...
In what sense do you mean that?
So let's say Instagram, you can't schedule posts on the Instagram app, but you can do it on other platforms.
Yeah.
Instagram could go in there and fix that up. And if people are asking for it, they're like, they could do that.
Yeah.
But what they do, and a lot of companies do this, federal government does this as well, is that they expose their own API, which is just the services. To simplify it for people, all they're doing is Instagram has all this data information and their abilities for you to upload and download and, comment and that. Those are all sort of services.
Yeah.
They can expose that out to the public and say, you can do it. If you want to go and do that, here's the data bits. You can figure it out, how to join it, how to put it on a structure, put it on a user interface, click it, set it up, and you can send that back and we'll operate with you. All we're doing is we expose the service.
Yeah.
Where they make money, just call it your wholesaling, is they charge for the use of that service, of that API call. So a third party might come and say, I can create this awesome Hootsuite, creates this massive platform. People are using it, right? People pay Hootsuite to use this whole platform, but Hootsuite pays Facebook and Instagram to get the API calls to use those service calls. Okay. So they make money on the back end. Yeah. Federal government does that sort of stuff as well. Okay. So in essence, you can go in and do it, but at the moment, there's just such horrific setups out there that I'm like, it's just ripe for the taking. When I had a chat with Tim from Sounder from San Francisco, I think in the podcast world, they're starting to get a little bit better in that podcasting, but man, it's just so far and away what could be done. And it sounds like there's a lot of investment coming from Spotify and a couple of other places to make it a lot better, and probably in the future better for third parties to take it on. But at the moment, it's fast for me to use my phone to post things. Like even if I'm posting 20 times a week, easier still. Yeah. So I thought, wow. But that was my take on that.
Yes. And I suppose that's just... I guess like on you, if you want to post that much, then you have to decide what the trade-off is of doing that. And sure, potentially, I could see that system being abused by people downloading every single photo that they've taken on a trip and just putting it in like a massive thing, so that instead of the 5 best photos they'd upload normally, they have 325 all go up from their latest trip.
Well, you're thinking about it too low on the totem pole, because what happened a couple of years ago, and Instagram had to change their APIs. So all software providers out there, or like big companies, tech companies, always changing their APIs all the time because people find little loopholes or ways around it. So a couple of years back, huge business popped up around, you want 1,000 more followers? Tell us, give us $2, we'll give you 1,000 more followers. Yeah. What they were able to do is, using these API calls, they were able to also have like an automated way to create accounts. And so they could spin up like 1,000 accounts really quickly using these services, and then get all 1,000 accounts to quickly go in and follow that particular, whatever you decide it to be. Yeah. So that was being able to be done through an API, and then they started shutting that down. So they keep updating it for people that go into loopholes or that sort of manner. Yeah. So it's interesting. It is interesting. Couple of other things I noted down. Something I mentioned to you earlier, but so the music. So I think I wrote down that the power of music to change your mood, I think, is massive. And 2, having such a positive outlook influences others. So that song, for some reason, has been like massively played for me through this week. I think I heard it on a radio somewhere, and I started listening a couple of places.
Is it a recent song, or it's
it isn't. That song from Frank Ocean is like, couldn't really tell you exactly, but maybe 6-7 years old. Okay. And I've just been listening to like the hour-long version of it while I'm doing a bit of work on the background. And I don't know what it is, but it has such a positive like mood influencer for me. So I listen to it, I'm like, good. I'm happy. Yeah. I'm ready to go. This is good. But then in turn, and I was saying to you when I was walking up Mount Cootha, and I was going for a hike, that having that positive sort of mood that influences you to have these conversations with people and get everyone else in sort of this positive mood, like an infectious positive mood. And I could almost feel by the time I finished this hike, I was like, I am like I've just like passed out all this like happiness, and people were sort of like responding to it, and I was like, dude, it's just fantastic. And it had been influenced by listening to that song a little bit earlier on in the day.
Okay.
So
cool.
I think it's, and it might not be for everyone, I think, but everyone has something, I think, that influences them highly, that at the trigger, you can be like, okay, I'm in a good mood already. Like, you know, you could just smile, listen to music, something, which puts you in a super good mood. And that in turn can help you put other people in good moods. I think that's what you were saying earlier with, I bet you would have gone to your families and been a little bit more grateful, way more positive, and they would have responded in kind and been like, you know, be a little bit more open, be a little bit more happy. And so you kind of get this sort of like
positive feedback.
Yeah, positive feedback loop, right? It's sort of like a circling up in an upwards manner. So I think it helps out. Yeah. I think people helping. I think it would help a lot of people to find what that is for them.
Yeah.
So whether it's music, running, having a shower, whatever, that sort of like switches you on and primes you.
Yeah.
Always a really good thing.
So let's try and dial that in a little bit, because I've had another recent thought on something similar. But, I'll wait to get to that. What is it about the music that does that to you?
So here's something, I'll spin it back to a different space, because I think it matches to this. With priming, I don't know how much you've heard about priming.
It depends on what context you're
priming. So
in mining terms, priming is what you use to detonate just before you detonate.
So maybe. Well, no, probably not in that regard. So I first saw this many years back, and it was a guy who's actually quite a good public speaker. And the thing he did before he got into any big presentations was he would backstage just start going like a dog, like, woof, woof, woof.
Okay.
Like really loud, right? And when he got up on stage, he would also like get something wrong straight away on purpose. Like he'll say something, or like, blah, 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 and then get into his presentation. His whole mindset was he did that as a way to prime himself, as a take yourself out of your context. Don't think about yourself too much. It's okay to fail, that sort of stuff, right? That's how he primed himself.
Yeah.
People like Tony Robbins has a 10-minute priming thing. And if you haven't checked that out, go check it out. It's really cool. He's got a couple of like sort of breathing patterns that are related to yoga, sort of with gratefulness and meditation, all sort of combined in this 10-minute thing. And for him, it's like, that's how he primes, then he trains and he gets himself ready. But that's how every day he's able to sort of have so much energy and gratefulness and be happy and positive sort of all the time. And he sort of devotes to like, it's the fact that I'm priming myself. So when I look back at this sort of stuff with the music and all that, I think it's, for me, music, I feel like it can prime me, but it can also be like a big influencer on my emotions. And I think priming can just, like, if you can prime yourself in a negative way, in the way that if you're about to go and do a presentation and you start being like, I'm really scared, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this, or peering at the side and you're like, I know I really can't do this or whatever.
Yeah.
You're priming yourself in a terrible way, right? It's just you're influencing yourself in a terrible way.
Yeah.
So gotcha. I think I looked at it from a priming perspective. And for me, those sort of music helps me prime to be like, okay, I can get into that, people call it flow state or whatever. It just primes me to be like, okay, I'm ready to go, to be in a happy mood or whatever mood it is that I need to be on.
And so how do you know what music does that and what music is just something you enjoy? What's the subjective experience?
I think it has to change my emotional mood. So it has to potentially hit that. I wouldn't say amygdala. It just has to emotionally invoke some sort of movement of whether it's positive or negative or happiness or sadness or joy. It has to have that. Not a lot of songs do. I can't tell you exactly why that song in particular. I think it's because it had the right melody and chill behind it, that it sort of settled sort of a mindset down of whatever it might have been.
Yeah.
But not 100% sure on that.
Okay. Yeah. So one of the things I've been doing is recently I've been trying to develop basically it's a real simple Word document, and I'll have like a bunch of different categories, and I'll find a source of something that I feel has some really important life lessons in it. And then I'll sort of just go through that source, and it can be whatever, an interaction I had with someone, a book, a podcast, a movie, music, whatever it is.
Yeah.
For me, I'm definitely more of I suppose visual person. So, or not particularly, because audio and books is where I've mostly been getting it. So podcasts and books, where I've been filling up this sheet from. And it's sort of like, I'll use these things and I'll find, like, for whatever reason, I feel there's some real important life lessons that I need to get from this. And I want to get it down in like bullet points. So I'll usually go through it and I'll come out with maybe like 6 bullet points of something really interesting. So you mentioned a week or two ago, Ray Dalio's Economic Principles. It's a 30-minute video you can find on YouTube. Amazing video. It's super succinct and explains the financial system and I guess how money works and how productivity works and the long-term, short-term debt cycle. Amazing video. So I watched that and I took down, sort of 5 notes, putting it in my own words, how that system works. And yeah, I've just been noticing. So I was doing that today with another book that I read. It's actually outside, so I don't have it in here with me, called Demian by Hermann Hesse, who was a German writer. He lived in the 1900 to 1980 something, I think. Okay. And it's a non-fiction book. It's a fiction book. And it's sort of like an exploration of this character and his. He has this friend called Damien. Yeah. Okay. And it's sort of like a psychological book in the sense that it's his own way of exploring his own psyche.
Right.
And
okay.
Normally these types of books I find really hard to understand. So Aldous Huxley's The Doors of Perception, for example, I just couldn't understand it. It was too just very the language used in it was just very hard.
The fact that you were struggling to find even language to explain it tells me a lot.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And anywho, what I'm trying to get at in general here is I find there are sources of information that just really stick with me. And I think how I know that it's something important is that it like absolutely just captures my attention. And so I've had times where it's very strange where I'll be reading a book and as I'm reading it, I'm feeling like this is, potentially the most important thing I've ever read. And
I know what you mean. Yeah.
For me, that's happened the most amount of times with 1984 by George Orwell, which is basically my favorite book for that reason. Every time I read it, I feel like
and reread
it. It's like I'm getting something amazing out of this. And it's hard to even say what it is. Which is why you need to explore
it's hard
to
pinpoint onto it. Yeah.
So when you were talking about the music, I understand that feeling.
I know exactly what you mean though with the book. I was reading. I've got the name right here. Sailing True North: 10 Admirals in the Voyage of Character by Admiral James Stavridis.
Yeah.
I will do a podcast on that actual book. But he was talking about Hyman Rickover, and he had there was just quotes plenty on this one. But I got to a point in that book about this particular character, Hyman Rickover, and he said something in relation to where was it? Yes, in regard to you can put tasks to your subordinates, but you can't let go of your responsibility and your accountability. So you can kind of give it away, but you can't lose it.
Yeah.
I think I've mentioned that quote a little while back. But I got that point when I read that, and I was like, I wasn't even thinking about writing quotes in this particular book, but I was like, I have to write this one down to remember it. Nice. And because it was just such a powerful thing, and I was like, I kind of like knew it, but when you read it and it's like in that particular way, it's like, that makes sense. Similar with the poem If.
That's
I know that you remembered it really, really well.
There was a period where I remembered it, not anymore. But
if you I would
Kipling, I think.
Yep. If you want to have a good listen of it, Jocko has a podcast on podcast If.
Yeah.
And he reads it twice.
Nice.
1 in his normal voice, and then 2 he breaks down every single line of that poem.
Yeah.
Man, just nice. Fantastic.
Another good resource for that is Zen Pencils.
Zen Pencils.
Yeah. Okay. I found this quite a few years ago, probably getting close to 5 years ago. And this was a website designed by this dude who just really enjoyed drawing as like a comic writer, but he didn't have like a comic series or anything like that. So he created this site called Zen Pencils where he would take long quotes like that and short ones as well, and he would create like a storyboard from it.
Oh, okay.
Really, really amazing. Very good drawing skills, and like the colors, the way he set it out was really nice. And he'd sort of
Zen pencils.
He'd create his own story from it, and I remember the reason I heard about that poem and some very
through that.
others were from the Zen pencil site. So
there you go. Check it out, people.
Yeah.
I got a couple of things. I don't know if you've got some others off the top of your mind.
No.
So
go for it.
Cool. I'll ask you this one first. There's a question that Tim Ferriss always asks his interviewees. And I asked this of someone the other day and they thought it was a dumb question. So I thought this was going to be a fantastic question for us.
Yeah, perfect.
The question was, what would you, if you could get anything written up on billboard sign, what would you get written up on a billboard sign?
Yeah, okay. So I was thinking about this for a while. Funnily, in the sense that I was like, oh yeah, if I was a podcast guest on the Tim Ferriss show and he asked me this and like,
we're going to send Tim an email after this. I'm going to be like, look, Tim, you need us on your podcast
just because I'll answer like this. And it's sort of like I was trying to think of ways to make it like unique and something really interesting and like something you'd never heard of before.
Yeah. But we are mere mortals here. Yeah. And it doesn't need to be that.
So for me, I'd put the Stoic quote, "This too shall pass."
Mm-hmm.
I think that's an interesting quote.
This too shall pass.
Yeah. Yep. Very, very short, very succinct. You'd be able to put that on a billboard.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that would be for the people intrigued into that quote and what it means, they'd probably search it up. And I think introducing more people to Stoicism is a good thing.
It's a good thing. Yep, so, I agree. My one would be find what you are passionate about.
Yeah.
It was interesting. I was having a conversation with someone about this, and we got real deep into. I was sort of coming across saying, if you do not find your passion, you cannot truly be happy. Mm-hmm. And they were fighting me back and be like, no, that's not true. What about people who are very unfortunate, who can't even afford to like eat, let alone try to find the passion? And I agreed in the sense that, if you're really can't eat, don't have a house or whatever.
Yeah.
Yes, you've got necessities of life that you need to, fill in first and make sure that you got that sorted out.
Yeah.
But in saying that, still finding your passion is what at the end of the line, at the end of your life, you're gonna wish you'd find what that was, or being able to get to it fast enough to not have to reflect back and go, oh, I really regret not being able to do that specific thing or those things that I really loved earlier. You'll always have that, right? I think it was a study with people, and we talked about it in the regret episode, where all these people at the end of their life, the biggest thing that they had was just regret. They didn't really care or were enamored with we worked all these hours, or I accomplished this, or I did that.
Yeah,
pretty much everyone hands down, it's like, I regret not doing this, not taking that on, or not doing that, or finishing this up earlier, whatever.
For sure,
because you don't really recall some of the minute wins that you had along the way.
And even the big losses tend to go away quickly as well.
Sure.
You crash your car, or you lose your $250 AirPod down a drain.
Goes like that. It
hurts, and then a week or two, like the things that I used to care about in a negative sense. Just I look back down. And it's just like, oh man, that really wasn't that important.
Yep. No, I agree. Now, my last one for you. So, not to give away obviously what I was reading with the book of Sailing True North, but there's 10 characteristics which they sort of sum up, which are what James believes are the 10 characteristics that you have to have nailed down well to be a true good leader. I guess your true north that all leaders should look towards, right? So I'll list these out of what those 10 are. But what I'm keen to hear from you is which one you think you are the worst at, which characteristic you have the worst at. Because through the book, he goes through 10 admirals and 2 other admirals as well on the side. And all of them have a couple of characteristics, but then really terrible characteristics in some other ways. So even the best one, which was, I guess, Chester Nimitz. And if you don't know Chester Nimitz, he's the admiral who oversaw when Pearl Harbor went down, and he was in charge of the whole fleet, all the US Navy fleet during that time. he had some areas which are good, but done other areas which still he lacked in. So the 10 character traits were creativity, resilience, humility, tolerance, honesty, empathy, justice, decisiveness, determination, and perspective. Which one of those do you think you would lack the most?
What was the first 4 again?
Creativity, resilience, humility, and balance.
Okay. Yeah, I think creativity would probably be up there for me.
I started reading that and I was like, oh dang, creativity is going to be the one for you, actually, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'm even. I mean, I know myself as well, and there's times like where I would struggle with humility. I would particularly struggle with a bunch of them. In fact, but I suppose the most consistent one that I could see would be. I'm not even sure if it's directly related to creativity or my propensity for not liking change that much in a sense. So I could see that. Yeah, it's more if I'm forced to change something, I think I can be creative at times.
Yeah, okay.
But I will do whatever I can to avoid changing in certain respects.
Keeping constant. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, or it's not something I like actively go out and look for.
Yeah, because for mine would be like I saw there and I was like, oh, I think humility and balance would be the hardest or the ones that I definitely lack the most out of those ones.
Okay.
But it was interesting to see as I was reading through the book and reading those character traits that even some of the the greatest admirals that there was and the people that he was able to find and whatnot, lacked quite a few of all these character traits. And the overall suggestion was you should have an ability of how you can improve in each one of those character traits, but in the end, just be in the knowledge that you're probably not going to be completely the best in all of those aspects. You're going to be potentially in just some of these ones, and it's okay to lack in the other ones as long as it's not ridiculously detrimental.
Yeah.
But
so with all these books, you I can just tell from your reading list.
Yep.
And you seem to enjoy the topic of leadership, and usually in an army sort of setting.
Interestingly, I'd say it's because of what I'm listening on podcasts.
Yeah.
But I got this one in particular in a podcast that wasn't about that, but it struck me as interesting.
Yeah. So, okay. Because I'm just thinking like you hear a lot about like leadership is like the most critical. They have it best down pat in the army, or they spend the most time on it, or there seems to be a thought that leadership is so critical to the army, and I'm just wondering, does it translate that well into civilian life, considering that in the army you're lacking that 50% of humans, females, which have they're humans, but they do have a very different sort of brain to guys, I guess.
Yeah, or just
males and
the way that they might interact.
Yeah, so I could sort of see how some concepts would carry over, and then I was just thinking like, are there some concepts that are not useful in a more company based?
Yeah, look, and I think most of the stuff that I read upon, anyways, is the stuff that is useful, broad based.
Yeah,
but I'm sure there would be stuff in there that would be way too narrow and niche. That might be the case for a war, army, or navy sort of look at, but realistically, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, well,
in the normal world,
what I'm more just thinking is in a broad based context. So you got an admiral. He's very good at leading people. And, he leads leaders. So he sort of gets that meta level of what it's like, of the traits that should be like. But I was just wondering, that same person, and you put him into a company context where he's leading women and men. And like, is there, not that his concepts that he's coming up with aren't useful in that in that other context, but is he just completely missing something that you can only get from
other areas?
Yeah, from managing women in particular.
But potentially, although when I read through those 10 character traits, right, that broadly would go across a lot of, because one being empathy, that would cover broadly, I guess, that movement as well.
Yeah.
Not to say that the US armies or worldwide armies are not devoid of any females.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But if in those particular readings it would be like, be aggressive, be dominant, be all these things, then maybe it's okay, well, that might not translate. But at least in that particular book, that's not how I sort of came across. But I'm always a little bit, because you do come across it, some particular tactics, even some of the ones from Jocko, where you got to be default, aggressive in some things. You got to find the dichotomy, find the balance of where it's right. So it might not always work in those cases. And so I sort of take it like, okay, I get what you're saying, but I've seen in some contexts where that wouldn't work at all. Like there's no reason or rhyme to potentially, if you go into a care center or a childcare facility, if something's gone down or whatever, and the default aggressive mode might be like, okay, we're going to get this fixed right now today.
Exactly.
And there's 10 babies crying. At that particular point in time, maybe a leadership role is to actually still care for them and stuff the fact that all the water bottles are going off or something like that. Right. Yeah. So I guess it might change the priorities in those perspectives, or you might have just be really slanted toward a particular character trait of leadership than in others. Right. So if you're an investment banker, right, at the top of like a partner in an investment bank, there's probably a tendency to not really care about a character trait of empathy or a character trait of creativity, perhaps. But maybe decisiveness and resilience is really high to be a leader there. So I think quite likely particular character traits fit particular domains, and that can be influenced when there's different ethnicities, different sort of gender balances, all that sort of stuff that can influence the different character types that take it. Sure. So that's interesting. Good question though. Interesting.
Good.
That's all I had for me. Anything else from you?
No. I think I'll leave it there as well.
Cool.
So let's do it.
Mere Mortals Musings number 3.
Brilliant.
That is all.
All right. Karen out.
One out.